Good day, and thank you for joining us. This is Russell Hendrickson. I'm the CEO here at Practical Data Solutions, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar topic, Identify and Manage Hidden Denials Through Analytics and Visualizations. Joining me today is our Executive Consultant, Becky Cook. Becky, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, Russell.
The technology today makes it really easy to build visualizations and build out analytics. I mean, the technology has gotten to the point where you can literally build a dashboard like this in an hour, provided you understand how to make sense of all the data. And as you can see, these dashboards using state-of-the-art analytics, they're point and click, they're drag and drop, and we've got quite a variety of information about denials and denial categories and even looking at recovery rates. And so that's the focus of today's webinar. That's what we're really trying to hone in on, is how do we make sense of what's going on with our denials? How do we then understand what are hidden denials, as we call them? We're going to explore that today in the webinar. How do we uncover opportunities and even quantify the impact of lost revenue or predict the potential revenue if we can improve how we're collecting or recovering on both denials and these hidden denials? So let's dig a little deeper into that.
Denials have been a problem for a long time. When we look at the denial statistics nationally, these are some of the examples I found. The AMA publishes a payer dashboard in which they show the denial rate by payer. And you can see there that if you're doing business with all of the 5 top payers, you probably have somewhere around a 10% denial rate. The American Academy of Family Practitioners estimates 5 to 10%, while the General Accounting Office has done studies in which they found denials up to 25%. There's a lot of variability in the statistics that get published, mostly due to the fact that there are no real standards in use on what is a denial and how to count it, and also that all of the reporting is voluntary. There's no national data set on what's a denial or how to measure them. These are the challenges with denials management, is finding out what's being denied and why, and what's happening with your recovery effort. What we're going to look at today is using analytics to drive our performance improvement by understanding what's in our denials and what's our opportunity for recoveries.
So what we're looking at here is a denials dashboard. This is what I like to call some simple basic trends. And probably everybody on this call that's working with or analyzing denials is doing something like this, fairly straightforward. What you're looking at here is how many denied charges we have. We've built in a benchmark here, or a target at 8%. That would be our goal. And then you can see the percentage of denials and how we're trending or averaging. If you look a little further down, you can see by division where we have the most denials. So we could either point and click if we want to understand what's going on in a particular division. We can also see which payers or payer categories are driving the largest denials. And of course, we can quickly see here across the bottom of the screen, endocrinology in particular, will have the highest denial rate currently. So it's really simple. This is fairly standard, and I'm sure most organizations are already measuring these types of things.
Russell, I really like the denial impact graph at the bottom, which shows me which of my denials I consider as recoverable over those that are perhaps not as recoverable, and also the likely source of denials, so that I can start to divide my denials worksheets up by what's the source of the denial. My registration people are in a different team than perhaps my coding people.
Yeah, and you can quickly see if I click right on registration, we've got registration issues in family practice and medicine, or if I click on, say, for example, denials that are payer related, we can see there's infectious diseases where we're getting hit the hardest there. So very simple, easy, kind of standard things that we're doing with denials here, what's going on, simple trending. Almost everybody's doing this type of reporting. Let's move forward a little bit though, and I want to discuss how here at PDS we help our clients by staging denials in a unique way. We call this our advanced denials or denial recovery module. And this is a unique perspective that we bring to our clients. And I'm going to use a more traditional crosstab type visualization here, because I want to be able to explain to you exactly how we do this. So we take all of the denial data and we restructure it. We restructure it in a way that the denied charges are showing what we billed out. The total charges is what we billed for that period. The denied charges is when a denial comes in, even though we might have billed it in July, if the denial comes in August or September, it gets posted back to July. What this allows us to do is measure accurately, here we are at the end of December, And what we billed in July, as the denials come in, it actually accounts for 15.4% of the charges, or $986,000 of the $6.4 million. We can also then measure what is typically referred to as a clean claim rate. We like to call that a clean line rate because typically denials are posted at the CPT level. So we can start to measure and trend whether we're doing a good job or what are our denial rates. Now we're doing this in aggregate in the dashboard, and I'm sharing this because what you're going to see coming up here is how we can use that information to actually make change. Second then, we can now measure, here we are at the end of December, we had $986,000 or 15% of July's billings charged. How much have we collected today after we've appealed? How much has been written off? And so how much of what's left is still outstanding in the accounts receivable, right? So it makes it very easy to line up how are we doing, what happened, and how have we recovered.
And Russell, one of the lines that I use in this analysis is the second from the bottom, which is denied charges with no transactions. So I look at those and I think, why do we have such a large amount in which we've had no transactions posted? That to me is a warning flag and something that we can look at as a different process to clear those.
The bottom of the screen here too, you'll notice we've actually showing a stacked bar chart, and you can see here that the payments after denial, here we are 6 months in, we've recovered quite a bit of July, but as you move closer to December, you can see mostly we have outstanding denials with no charges, obviously, because those are the ones that might have just come in. We can then further break down our visualization and show levels of detail, bar charts, visuals, point and click, drag and drop, making it very easy for the user.
So I see there that we have detail actually on the prime denial code so that I can see by denial code what are the total denied charges and payments that we've recovered. I've also got our classification there as to whether it's low impact or high impact so that I can keep reassigning those codes based on how well we're doing with our recovery efforts.
So more informational might be good when we start to distribute information, pushing it out to the different users, helping the practices, the divisions understand what's going on and how we are or aren't collecting and the impact of that. Now, let's take all three of those different dashboards and put them together in a way where we can really begin to use analytics to find and understand where are we recovering and where aren't we recovering. So that same data now has been lined up and put into a visualization. So here we have the payments and adjustments on resolved denials. We can see the collections on denials. And we can over here, right in the center of this visualization, what we're looking for is denied charges with very low recovery rates. And so if I just literally point and click and drag out and see who are the larger payers where we're billing a significant amount of dollars and we're not recovering. So right away, just through that simple click, we can see we're having a problem with Anthem. We can see registration and coding. We can see that infectious disease and hematology are some of the areas where we're impacted. So very quickly, we can start to see that where we're getting denials with these payers, we're not recovering. And that's where we really need to focus is how do we understand where the high opportunities are, yet our collection rates are very low, and do we need to change our strategy, et cetera. So that's kind of a little summary of tying all those pieces of data together, so now the visualization is actually pointing us in the right direction. This webinar we titled Hidden Denials. Can you explain what is a hidden denial? I know this is the area you're really anxious to share with the people attending today.
Well, it's an area that is overlooked. You've done a great job of visualizing for us the denials that we've received. Those are straightforward to find because we have something from the payer that says it's denied. Hidden denials are those claims that we just never receive a payment or a write-off notice for. For some reason, they remain as outstanding. And you can see some of the types of hidden denials here. In order to find these, we really have to start with our own data. We cannot use the payer data, of course, on these because there's no denial. Other than that, we're really going to use the same type of processes that we've used for denials of looking for potential problem areas, looking at our dashboards or outliers on our data, so that we know where to start looking and using a lot of analytics capability to find them. So let's use an example here of inaccurate payments. Some of the types of inaccurate payments I've found include fee schedule changes in the middle of the year that we haven't been notified of, provider network changes where a physician gets dropped from a network or added to an incorrect network, and reimbursement changes, unexpected contract implementations. where the payer contracts to implement the Medicare fee schedules, but they implement them on April 1 instead of January 1. So we want to be able to identify all of these and, more importantly, quantify them so that we know not just the value of our denials and potentially what revenue we've lost, but what revenue we've lost from these so-called hidden denials. So one of the ways I might start to look for these inaccurate payments is really looking at our collections and reimbursement information and using my benchmarks. So if we look right in the center of the page, there's adjusted collections per total RVU, and right away I'm going to go after that shorter green bar, thinking that that's probably an anomaly, and I want to be able to drill into this. So Russell, I'm going to let you show us how do we drill in to start looking for this detailed data.
So the technology, again, this is where your analytics technology really makes it easy, and the tools have come such a long way. So whether I'm using a static dashboard or I'm in a visualization like we previously showed, I can literally just click and drill right into whatever data set I want to analyze. And we here at PDS, we're a real big proponent of using cubes and that cube technology, where any kind of cached or summarized data makes it very easy for users to explore data without having to run multiple reports and move data into spreadsheets. And so what you'll see here is we're looking at a particular payer, and we're starting to look for where we might have underpayments, right? Where might we have adjustments that were posted but potentially not to contract? And so I can simply point and click, drag and drop with lightning speed, and I can start to look into gastroenterology. We saw there was a fair amount of variance to what we expected to see. I can then see there's quite a bit of money here in surgery. So I can then just filter through and grab that, filter out on surgery. I'll bring in my procedures then. And so from here now, I'm starting to see what procedures, which codes. Here we are filtered on surgery. Where do I go from here, Becky?
I'm going to want to look down at the individual procedure codes because this information is useful. It's really gotten us where we need to, but we need to look down at the transaction levels. So let's just look at the biggest one there, the 43268. That's an ERCP procedure. They're prone to lots of denials. Let's go see what's happening, why we're not getting as much reimbursement as we would have expected on these. So this is the line item detail. This is the claims detail on this particular code. And what I can look at is the approved amount column either has $1,314 or zero in it. And the contract profile amount is $2,048. So I'm going to have to look at these transactions to understand what is the payer doing. I also see that there are modifiers in the middle of the page. Looks like the modifiers may be impacting how the claims are being treated by the payer and being paid. So I'm going to want to filter on those modifiers to be able to look at and verify that. And sure enough, if we look at the claims without modifiers there, we have all zero approved amounts. Modifier 51 says there are multiple procedures that are being submitted, but there should still be some payment on the primary code. And then here we have procedures with the 51 modifier, and sure enough, we're being paid a reduced amount, but I'm going to have to go figure out why we aren't getting paid on the primary amount, and is this reduced amount correct if it's a multiple procedure. So you can see how quickly we've done this analysis. We still have to go work with the payer now, but at least I can take all of these claims at once and work with the payer instead of having to refile these claims one by one with an explanation of why it should be paid. So we've saved lots and lots of hours and manpower in order to get our answers here.
You know, we go back to that ability to slice and dice right through data, the ability to very quickly filter through. I didn't have to run multiple reports. I didn't have to go and start pulling data into spreadsheets and then trying to do lookups to join data. So that ability to really hone in on where is the opportunities and use the analytics to drive back to that time savings. And that's really when we start looking at these large volume of claims without the ability to focus, you're not going to be able to get there quickly.
So Russell, just another quick example of these hidden denials, unresolved claims, where we have claims that are either unpaid or no response, and zero balances with inappropriate write-offs. So if we were to start looking at these, I'm going to have to start in a little bit different place. On the first one, they're unpaid claims or unresolved claims. I'm going to start with my AR aging. And looking here at the dashboard, right in the middle, there's accounts receivable outstanding, and I'm going to go immediately to that gray bar where I've got a lot of claims that are very old. And I'm going to want to do the same process of drilling through there, sorting and identifying which of those are insurance claims for which payers. And if I can tell what reason why they haven't been paid, then I can appropriately either refile them or work with the payer to get them paid. In the case of claims that have been written off, that have a 100% write-off, I might actually have to start with a query of my adjustments for the month and write a query that says if the adjustment amount is equal to the charge amount, then show me a list of those. And those really I'm looking for things that the payment posters would never find. They're busy posting. They don't recognize that these are being written off in total. They're just written off, and I want to go try and recover those funds if I can. Some of the other common areas for non-payments include things like medical necessity at pre-authorizations that don't get sent in time or get mismatched, eligibility problems, and one of my favorites, resubmissions and appeals, where we've sent submissions in multiple times and they keep coming back and getting churned through our system. So looking for recovery opportunities is where I'm really using our analytics on these hidden denials. I want to use my filters, my sorting capability, trending, looking for outliers. Beyond that, I want to look at my individual transactions. So these steps are true whether I'm looking at pure denials or whether I'm looking at hidden denials and lost revenue opportunities. When I have that detailed information, then I want to regroup my transactions to start looking at what are my resolution strategies or likelihood of recovery so that I can deal with these in mass efforts instead of one by one. And I think, Russell, you have an example for us of regrouping these transactions so that we can start to make some sense of them.
Yes, I do. So let's take what we've just discussed and just build a little further here. So we're looking at another visualization, but we've taken it down to the next level here. And by doing that, what we've done is we've joined in again, looking at the denied claims, but by bringing in the profile amounts, which might be loaded from the system, the contract module in your system. They could be loaded manually. So by doing that, we can now start to see which procedures, what the profile or the potential revenue is. We can then start to understand how we're recovering. And we can start to make sense then of either what's the opportunity or what's the lost revenue. And so this is another fully interactive dashboard that allows us to slice and dice through the data, but really understand what's going on within the data. So Becky, again, we're tying some different concepts together here by adding cost, adding recovery rates. How do we get there from here? How does this help us understand what's really going on?
So because we have those allowed amounts or profile amounts in the analysis, I can really focus on exactly the claims that you have highlighted there, which is those that have high values and low recovery rates. Those I want to hone in on with my denials team, my recovery teams, to find out what's going on with them. I can see then that highlighting that, it looks like it's pulled up the details at the bottom. So I have the CPT codes and I can exactly see those CPT codes by division or by payer, however I may want to work them. And because these are denied claims, there's a cost to working the denials. And I see we've put a column in for admin costs, and that is approximately $35 just to rework a claim. So beyond the cost of filing the claim initially, we have a cost to work the denial on it, which is expensive, and that reduces our recovery rate. So in the last column then, what we have is a recovery rate as well as our lost revenue estimate. Russell, I'm going to let you speak to how that lost revenue estimate is calculated for us.
So the lost revenue, if we look at up here in the top selector, we have what our adjudicated claims. So if a claim has been fully adjudicated and we know our recovery rate was 1, 2, 5%, then this is truly revenue lost from what we contracted to what we actually collected. But if I were to flip this selector over and say not adjudicated in full, that lost revenue is really at-risk revenue. So the analysis is then saying if we continue collecting at a very low recovery rate, we're really predicting the at-risk revenue, or I would challenge that's also an opportunity. Because if we can now focus on those high potentially dollar claims that we could recover, or find a way to change how we're managing recovery, that's opportunity. So we're able to focus and look through, and that goes back to digging in the details. But so this dashboard is actually looking at both lost or predicting what could be the potential if we can change how we're managing our claims. So it's kind of an interesting way to look at the data, really filtering both capabilities.
It's very efficient because it lets me focus my efforts and understand exactly where we need to go to make sure that we're recovering every dollar we're entitled to. So very effective. So one of the things I think, Russell, we need to understand is that while that's a very sophisticated model and it gets us the data that we want and the answers that we want, we don't have to present it in such a complex way. And I like this dashboard. I think it does a good job of showing us what the results are, what the information is that we need to know in a very simple way. And I'll let you walk through the dashboard if you would.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, in this case, your dashboards don't have to be fully visualizations. You don't have to be pushing out and have users clicking through. In some cases, you just want to be able to communicate effectively. And we've shared a lot of different visualizations in this webinar. But what I like about this dashboard is it's fairly simple. It shows high impact, low impact. You can quickly see, again, the billing and registration is almost 50% of our denials where we're struggling as an organization. You can quickly see our goal, our target was 12% or less, and we're actually over our target so that we're not hitting our goal for denials. And we've even included some of the top denial codes, including the cost of rework. So we've subtracted that from the payments to show the net recovery. But what I like most about this dashboard is this bottom right panel here that says the payment rate comparison. So when it's a clean claim, we're collecting 54% of the charge. When it's denied, we're only getting 10.5. And so as a communication point, really clearly stands out that the impact of a denial on the reimbursement of our organization. So to kind of summarize a little bit here, understanding the impact, how do we manage through it? Well, being able to target, prioritize, use the analytics to drive where are the claims that are the most valuable to us and where have the biggest potential opportunity or risk if we don't collect. And then understanding how our current efforts are managing. We may be managing and very focused and we're still not recovering. So we may have to ask the question, does it even make sense to focus our teams on these claims? Do we have to go back to the payer or do we have to look at some change in our process and if our recovery isn't successful? And then of course factoring in the cost of recovery may or may not in some case dictate if it's worth chasing a set of claims.
So I put a statement in here from an advisory board publication that they've estimated that only about 2/3 of denials are recoverable, which is probably about right. With some of them we just can't chase and it's better to just write them off. But one of the statements that they make is that 90% of them can be prevented. I think that's one of the uses of analytics is being able to classify, stratify the denials so that we can start to make these kind of strategic decisions about what we're going to work on, exactly as you stated, Russell. We want to make sure we're touching the right claims at the right times. So if we summarize, one of the things that we said in the beginning was that we can't rely on payer data to find this because there's lots of denials that are hidden and we have to go looking for them. We want to analyze our work processes to help us identify potential problem spots. And then we're going to review our dashboards for outliers or data that's inconsistent with expectations or our experience. And this is where having your analysts that are familiar with the data can really excel because they can spot things that look different, that look kind of off, and help identify them. And then using the robust analytics that you've shown us, Russell, in order to identify specific suspect data so that we can resolve it.
With that, that concludes today's webinar. Becky, thank you so much for helping compile and share the information today. And thank you all for attending and joining us today and hope to hear from you or see you on future webinars. Thank you so much.